Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. We are going to be talking about James Bond, kind of in a different frame of mind. We've done a This Is Not Your Father's James Bond before with Ellis. We brought a couple people back to have this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
That's not your father over there. That's none other than Joe Darlington from Being James Bond. Joe, welcome back.
They actually let me back. Can you believe this?
I know,
Oh my
I know.
God.
We tried to lock the place and he gets in. And my daughter, Ashlen, welcome
Hi, guys.
back. Ashlen, you've seen on a lot of our He Said, She Saids, but this time you're back to really talk about a question that Joe and I had that we wanted to pose to you and kind of go back and forth. Are young people going to see James Bond? Let's start there.
Probably not as many as you think.
Okay, and I didn't think there was that many, so talk to me about that. First of all, why?
It's expensive, and, you know, unless you're probably living at home still, which you shouldn't be, go out and live your life, get out. I can't justify spending $45, $50 on a movie.
Wait, what? Are you buying that movie?
No, if I go out with a date or something like that, I'm not going to go alone to see a movie.
Oh,
it's too
okay.
expensive to do that.
Right.
Because then you have to get
Overpriced
pretzels, and then you got to get
goodies, yeah.
popcorn, and
Oh,
it's an
yeah.
experience and everything like that. I need my mystery flavored Airhead. I don't know what I need.
So is a part of it the movie going experience, like going to the theater?
I think
is
it's
the
the
issue?
actual initial going somewhere that's not your living room, and the convenience is like, I have to do this. I have to pre-order my ticket. The only reason I can justify spending $45 on something is if I'm going to a concert and I can see like something live.
Right.
And just immerse yourself that way. I have trouble immersing myself in movie theaters with other people.
Yeah, and your age group is more technology oriented. I mean, they
Yeah.
call it two screening, where you're using your computer and your phone, and
And then you're
watching
playing
two
something on
things.
TV and
Right,
things like
so
that.
three
So,
screening.
yeah.
If anything. So the movies, I mean, I would imagine from your age group, it's almost antiquated.
A little bit, yeah. I honestly know maybe 2 or 3 really diehard James Bond fans that are my age. Shout out to Jordan Greenberg. Thank
Oh.
you so much.
Didn't see that coming.
We talk sometimes about
Will he
Bond
go to the
stuff.
Will he go to the theater?
I hope so. I hope he does, but
Okay.
I'll probably go alone because
Joe-
no one's gonna go with him.
Joe, before we had this conversation, because we're gonna really dissect and pick Ashlen's brain on some things. What were some of the assumptions you made? Because you even said you knew there was a disconnect with younger people to gravitating to James Bond. What do you think it was about?
Well, I mean, I was sort of hearkening back to your first conversation with Ellis, and I think you asked him something like, "So, what do your friends think about James Bond?" And he goes, "My friends would be like, who?" And the conversation we just had with Ashlen, I think, kind of sort of like took that a step further. And I honestly, I'm sort of getting to where is it even do kids even care about James Bond enough to take the time to try to market to them,
Yeah.
or is it just sort of a lost cause? And I'm kind of getting a little nervous.
I'm sure there's few and far between fans.
Well, it's
They're out there.
interesting. Here's something I found out a lot in the last 6 months. When I run into younger fans of James Bond, they all tell me they learned James Bond through one venue, and that is the game GoldenEye
Oh, okay.
on Nintendo. And they say, you know what? I didn't
Fair.
have a first James Bond in the movie. Mine was on a video game. And they say the problem is, and I hear this from Calvin Dyson all the time, the problem is they don't have video games around James Bond anymore.
Yeah.
That's right.
They've
when
kind
did
of
they
nixed
stop?
it. I don't
Is it
know.
Bloodstone?
Oh, you remember that? We have them all still.
Yeah.
We played them all. We love them all. Well, we don't love them all, but I think they had a couple bad ones that didn't make money. They stopped them. They were too expensive.
I know GoldenEye was the best one.
GoldenEye was still the best one, and look when that came
Multiplayer.
out. Right,
We played
but
Pussy
here's the
Galore.
thing. I think Joe's always said this. Your entry point into Bond is a very important part of your life. It's who you gravitate to. It's the type of Bond that you like. And guess what, folks? It's whether you like the series or not. So if we don't have a game to support it or something that's congruent
More
to your
relevant.
age group and more relevant,
Yeah.
exactly, is that going to be an issue?
Is there a dating app for James Bond fans yet?
Holy cow!
Ah!
Instead of J-Date, it's JB Date.
Sick and tired of having high expectations when you meet someone on a dating site? Well, now you don't have to. The first ever dating site that helps you aim low and dream small.
That would be great, a James Bond dating app.
Let's bond
you look-
together.
You'd have a million guys.
Vespers.
You'd have a million guys and like
Yeah,
3 women.
we rate them.
And those 3 women are catfishing, and they're guys. Those 3 women are guys. I'm just saying.
It's just how you troll each other.
See, this is how ideas are built and destroyed. It's all at
Trademark
once.
it this real quick.
Oh my gosh! All right, so Ashlen, I mean, what are some of the solutions here? I mean, can the James Bond franchise recover from this? Can we get the younger generation interested in James Bond? How do we do it?
I don't know. I don't know if you can.
I mean, first of all, is casting a big issue? I mean, a 51-year-old running around, is that?
I don't even think that's relevant. I don't even know many 51-year-old men.
Well, hold on a second. So John Wick is very popular.
Yes.
He's older than 51.
Okay, so it's Keanu Reeves, first of all.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means everything. I grew up watching Keanu Reeves and like Bill and Ted's Excellent like Adventure and stuff like that. So my experience with Keanu Reeves is so much different than Daniel Craig or even Pierce Brosnan or whatever. I think when I got first introduced to Pierce Brosnan was watching GoldenEye actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's all like you said, your entry point and things like that. But I don't see it being conducive to a modern person's
So
lifestyle?
if they took a Christopher Hemsworth, the guy who plays Thor, who a lot of people
Maybe.
have grown up with Thor and many good Marvel movies, a lot of fun, and made him James Bond, would younger people have more of a gravitational pull?
Maybe,
to that?
but even they tried to do that with Men in Black, and that didn't really work either.
Oh, that's true.
So
That's
I think
another
they
movie
tried.
we forgot to throw in there, by the way, Men in Black.
Yeah, Men in Black. Let's forget about that.
Yeah. Boy, there's been a lot of disasters.
It's not been a good year for cinema.
Joe, even as somebody of your advanced age like myself, what do you think? What do you think or imagine some of the things that the franchise could do to bring people in?
I don't know, boy. I feel like listening to Ashlen, I feel like maybe we should just take him out back and put him out of his misery.
Oh my God!
I mean,
We had a good run, right?
yeah, maybe I don't know.
We had the movies in the '60s.
I say, it's
Always have
interesting. Yeah, I am sort of wondering. I mean, I've always sort of had thoughts about where James Bond should go, and like for example, I mean, I've always kicked around the possibility. For a long time, I've always kicked around the idea. I would love to see them do the original novels,
That
do
would
them
be
in the
cool.
time that they are set, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of said, I wouldn't want to see the cinematic Bond go that way, but maybe as like an offshoot
They're just gonna
side
reboot
thing
the
where they
entire
do.
series.
Right, I mean, do it on Netflix or like one of the streamings. And now we're sort of living in an era where I kind of feel like that actually could be the way they actually go. Because again, I think. I mean, even when you read some of the Bond novels, I've always sort of joked about, like, the post Flemings, post Raymond Benson novels. They always set them in the 50s and 60s because I think that they find, except for one, I think that they find it to be a struggle to sort of figure out how you take that.
How do you modernize Bond?
Right?
kind
How
of
do you
thing?
take a guy that is literally from the time before? I mean,
The dinosaurs.
I mean, they were using Morse code in James Bond's days,
Yeah.
and now we're trying to put him in a completely modern, Jason Bourne, John Wick era. How can you possibly do that? So, yeah, I mean, I am sort of wondering, like, where I see this franchise going and how you do it. I mean, seriously, we've been talking about, doing the modern James Bond, how he needs to evolve, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to evolve so far that it's going to be, well, how is this even James Bond
You're going to be
anymore?
reverting at that
Well,
point.
it's funny, and I think you did this as well. James Bond Complex, it's another podcast based in Canada, had asked a bunch of us to say, what would we want Bond 26 to be? And I actually said, I want Bond to be rebooted in the 50s and 60s. And I said, what I'd
Time
like it to
travel.
do is to focus not only on the Ian Fleming novels, but for it to be more about drama. And high drama, almost like your favorite series
Like a soap
of really
opera.
good dialogues and continuations, as opposed to
you want
trying
like a Deadwood kind of situation.
like Deadwood,
Yeah.
but not trying to battle Mission Impossible. I think so much, and I don't know if Eon does this in their heads, but it's we got to get better than Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is the one to beat. Why? What if you went down your own path like you've always done and just try to go in a different direction?
Yeah,
Right.
I think you get consumed with like the competition and other competing things, and you kind of lose faith in the franchise. I think personally,
Yeah, you're right.
but I mean, it's hard to probably modernize something that is also deliberately set in a 20-year span, and for it to be modernized just seems ridiculous. I don't know, me personally.
I mean, there's, again, the uniqueness of James Bond. When you and I had done the series about the first, because I was the one sort of making the argument that the first were always the best, because they focused on making it more of a James Bond, here's what makes James Bond unique sort of a thing.
The experience,
and that's
the environment.
and that's when they make great movies, and then from there, it almost seems like the natural instinct in their second, third, fourth films, well, what's everybody else doing? Like, what other franchises are successful right now, and what can we do to sort of mimic those? And that's when they kind of go wrong, because you end up with this kind of watered down version of a James Bond film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of feel like they really need to sort of push and focus on the uniqueness of James Bond. I mean, you might not ever compete with the Mission Impossible films, the Marvel films.
But it's its own separate entity.
Yeah, I mean,
franchise.
I can
It's its own
see
thing.
why, the need to be competitive is there, and how we need to sort of do what these other franchises are doing to stay relevant, or not. Or maybe you just focus on what makes James Bond unique and special, and focus on that, and you'll get the best possible,
Well, and if rumors are to be believed, Barbara Broccoli is much more into, it seems, again, rumors to be believed, drama and plays and things like that. This would be perfect. It's like, you know what? We're done with the giant, $1 billion action films, and now we're going to still retain James Bond as an entity, but you know what? Now we're going to do smaller, more like chunks of the books. And this is going to be,
But do it right. Make
yes,
it
it's going to
sincere,
be an
yeah.
8-part series on Netflix, and every year we're going to be doing another book. So this year we're doing the first one. This is our version
that's
of
kind of
this.
how they rebooted a series of unfortunate events too. That they saved
Yes.
that franchise basically because it was so bastardized. But
Very good point.
wasn't that kind of how Game of Thrones was before it kind of...
before it took a dump,
Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly.
we don't talk about.
Well, that's a great point. They took the Game of
Dark
Thrones
time.
books, and they kept them kind of true to the character and things like that, and decided to pay. And look at that
This year
paid
was
off.
rough for cinema.
I mean, can you imagine
TV?
if Game of Thrones, they took that type of process of the first 2/3 of it and applied it to James Bond? I think it would be epic.
You think HBO would pick it up or Netflix would stream it?
I hope Netflix would do it.
Really? 'Cause
Yeah, believe it or not.
they've been pumping out some great stuff lately.
Yeah.
HBO's been hit and miss.
Really?
I believe so.
But we are living in the days where these streaming... I mean, again, we're going to have so many streaming services now that I don't
It's
know
gonna
how it's
be
even
ridiculous.
going to... Right. I mean, I don't know where the chips will fall. But
You may as well
still...
pay for cable.
Yeah. But they're clamoring for content. So I kind of feel like no matter who does it and how, if somebody says, okay, well, look, we got a James Bond... Boom! They'll trip over themselves to get it because they're
Yes.
looking for anything at this point.
We have James Bond streaming TV.
Right? You get the Pluto channel, which was great yesterday.
do.
Pluto.
Yeah.
You too.
So I kind of feel like no matter what they do, there will be an audience for it. So like you said, do it in that way where you can sort of take something and cultivate it and make this. I mean, again, one of the things I think people sort of forget about James Bond is that we love James Bond because it's a world that you want to immerse yourself in. I mean, we literally
It's
kind of made it
fantasy.
like a part of our lives, frankly, that we love this world that we can walk into, and it's such a rich world. So why not take that and
Yeah.
expand on it and say, like, I mean, you could just do, like, this is a day in the life of James Bond.
By the way, I
Just
love.
go to the grocery store. Taking out a
I know.
tampon.
I love this conversation. You had to bring that back. Tampon gate. I love how this conversation is less about how do we attract younger people and more about how to evolve the James Bond franchise. It's about the evolution
You need to
of it.
cultivate the fan base that you already have and nourish them a little bit more. I think because I think
That's a great way
it's
to put it.
it's hard to be a fan of something if you only get something once every 5 years, every 3 years. It's hard to have a consistent fan base.
Well,
I think.
Guess who's been
And keep it real.
nourishing the fan
You
base?
have been nourishing the fan base.
We
and you have.
yeah. I mean, all of us. I mean, the Bond community, thankfully, is deeply, deeply nourishing. Which is when we get a trailer, it's like someone threw a cracker to us in the desert. We're like,
Right. Oh my
that
God!
is the
Right.
best cracker in the world.
It's so true. And I think a lot of what we're talking about now, I think it also points to the idea: if you focus on making the best quality product you can, that's how you get younger people or just more people to view it.
Exactly.
I think when you set down on the course of, well, how are you going to appeal to the young people? Then you end up with like those Wendy's memes, that
Oh, their Twitter account.
yeah,
is-
right. That's
dynamite.
That's somebody. Yeah, that's somebody saying like, "Come on, we attract the young people." Okay, here's how you do it. Yeah, no. If you focus on the best product you possibly can, a quality product, that's how you attract the larger fan base.
I love it. So this is a gift and a love letter to Barbara Broccoli. This is
If you're watching,
we
Barbs.
didn't seal this in an envelope, but consider this yours of how to evolve the franchise. First of all, down below, I'm sure you're going to anyway. What do you think about this idea? Are we crazy? Are we insane?
Is it crazy enough to work?
Should we have not woken up on a Sunday morning and done this? Tell us everything. But Joe, thank you for coming back.
Anytime.
Thank you, Joe.
That won't be repeating. Ashlen, thank you for coming back.
Thanks.
Having some tea.
Of course, tea
She's
talk.
She's got to have her mug. That's part of her branding. Go see Joe on Being James Bond in a lot of different channels, and go see you. Go listen to
Go
you on your
listen to
podcast.
me. Don't
On
look at me.
Black Velvet Podcast.
Black Velvet Podcast.
Black Velvet Podcast. We'll put the links in below. This has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience about evolving the franchise, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take care.
See ya.
Sick and tired of having high expectations when you meet someone on a dating site? Well, now you don't have to. The first ever dating site that helps you aim low and dream small.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.